Hello, my name is Hassan Manasseh, and this is my artist report on my two artists. So my movement, I chose Surrealism, and the goal of Surrealism is to be able to focus on revolutionizing human experience. It's also a balance point for a rational vision of life, with one that asserts power of the unconscious and dreams. So it's basically just your imagination and just things beyond life that isn't really real. It's a 20th century movement of artists and writers, also developing out of Dadaism, or people would call it Dede or Dada, I believe. It was developed in Europe in the aftermath of World War One, in which artists depict unnerving, and this shows a lot of the artists being French or German or Belgian, and just many of these artists are just from Europe. Characteristics of Surrealism. There's many different types of characteristics when we look at pieces of surrealism. There's personal iconography, unreal and more in the imagination life, automatism and a spirit of spontaneity, childlike designs, unorganized objects, extraordinary effects, unideal and unexpected juxtapositions, and just more things like this that we see that aren't in real life, and just more of our dreams that we see in our dreams, what we see in our head, what we see in our imagination, and nothing like we see in real life. For my first artist, I decided to choose Max Ernst. He was born in Germany in 1892. He passed away in France in 1976. So he was German in France, and he was a primary pioneer of the Dada and Surrealism movement. For Rene Magritte, he is my second artist that I decided to use. He is Belgium. He's a Belgium Surrealism artist. He was born in 1898. He lived in Belgium for most of his life, and he had passed away in Belgium in 1967. And he's very well known for creating a number of witty and thought-provoking images. So other movements that Max Ernst was involved in was modern art and Dada, or Dadaism, like I said earlier. And as we see this painting here to the left, it's called Full Maximilian. And as we can see, it's like a hand coming out of a window, and it's crossing, holding a red ball, and just showing that how Max had became a citizen in both the U.S. and France. For Rene Magritte, he was also very similar to Max Ernst, because they were in the same movement, just around the same time period. So he was also in Dede and modern art. And this right here is the Son of Man that he had painted. And the meaning behind this shows clearly by the covered face of the man. Due to the unseen face of the man, the facial look of the man becomes a mystery. So basically, you can use your own imagination, and this is why it's a surrealist piece of art, because it's all your imagination and what you can see, and what do you see in this man, and for an example, it could mean something about religious dogmas. So it's really just your imagination and what you see, and you can even choose what kind of face this man has. Artists with influence. So Max Ernst was influenced by Vincent van Gogh, Auguste Mack, and the canvases of Giorgio de Chirico. For Rene Magritte, he was influenced by Jean Metzinger, Fernand de Legar, Andre Bayton, who was also really well known for Surrealism and also writing books of Surrealism. Jack Bayton, Sigmund Freud. He was influenced by Cubism and the Post-Impressionism, which are movements, of course. Surrealism in literature, music, or other arts. Surrealism is not only just in paintings, but it's moved on into into writing books and more things like that. For example, Luis Buñuel was a famous surrealist director. There's also surrealist music, and which is music which uses unexpected juxtapositions and other surrealistic techniques. Artists include Window Clicker, Black Hole Sun, and The Right at the Core. Probably not the most well-known artists, but these are some surrealist music artists. Andre Bayton, he wrote Le Manifeste du Surrealisme. He wrote it with Yvonne Gold, which is a book, and Andre Bayton has actually wrote many books on surrealism. Mary Ann Calls recently wrote The Milk Bowl of Feathers in 2018, which is also on surrealism. So surrealism isn't just about painting and sculptures. It's been influenced into directors and even authors and music artists. Media used by Max Ernst. Uh, he would do paintings, collages, printmaking, and sculptures. And on the left here, this painting is called Ubu Imperator, which also means the commander. So a lot of Ernst paintings and art pieces are in German or French, but we're able to get the translation. And as we can see, it's just like a figure of, you can tell it's not a humanly figure, but we can see it as humanly features with a face and hands and just the meaning behind this is that it lacks the stability and authority a leader usually commands in both art and life. Media used by Rene Magritte was mainly painting and oil on canvases. For this painting, this one is called The Treachery of Images. It represented a reaction against rationalism that some believed led Europe into the horrors of World War One. As I talked about earlier, World War One was influenced into surrealism, and it attempted to join the realm of dreams and fantasies to the everyday world. Moving on, The Elephant Syllabus. This is a painting by Max Ernst, and as you can see here, there's just a bunch of just objects that's out of whack, and this is what really makes it surrealism, as we can see. But the work's title comes from a childish German rhyme that begins, "The elephant from syllabus has sticky yellow bottom grease." The painting's inexplicable combinations, such as the headless female figure and the elephant-like creature, suggest images from a dream and the Freudian technique of free association. So, as we can see, there's just a lot of headless figures and just things like that. This is called The Lovers by Rene Magritte, and it's one of my favorites and just something that I see as very interesting. And it's a lesson in falling in love and getting closer and closer to a person and suddenly realizing that you never truly know them. It represents the conflict that exists between the image of a person conjured in the mind and their lover and who they actually are. This one speaks a lot to me, just with experience and with being in a relationship when sometimes you don't really know who they really are, even if you've been with them for so long. This one is called Forrest and Dub. This one is by Max Ernst, and it's really hard to see in this image, but this is basically, there's a forest as we see, and there is a dove in this photo, which is really hard to see. But the meaning behind this is that the dove is just trapped among all these trees, and it's just trying to find a way out. And this is meaningful to Max because this is kind of how he felt throughout life, that he was just stuck in between trees and always just trying to find an outlet in life. And painting was just one of those outlets. As I said, the dove does represent himself, just trapped among everything. So yeah. Moving on to Golconda by Rene Magritte. And this is also another interesting one, especially for us men. As we can see in the image, we have all these men just floating with the building in the background, but there's just a numerous amounts of men just floating, and it's one of his major masterpieces that he completed in life. And the he used his very common image of nearly identical men in long, coal-colored trench coats and derby hats. The surreal painting draws the viewer into a realm of uncertainty as he depicts image of men that are unusual. This one, Two Children Are Threatened by a Nightingale by Max Ernst. And as you can see that in the painting, it's hard to see, but we see like a little house and a background of skies and grass and just a gate right there. And this was one of his last pieces of his collage masterpieces, and it was a farewell to the genre. And it just symbolizes that there's two critical moments in Ernst's life, which did mark his existence. This one is called The Memory of a Journey by Rene Magritte. It's a dreamlike image that seemingly evades logic. As we can see that there's a feather basically holding up a building, and in real life we know that would probably never happen. We know it's not real, but it's the Leaning Tower of Pisa, supported by a giant feather, brings to mind several associations all at once. This one is called Revolution by Night, which is pretty interesting and involves religion a little bit. But as you see in this painting, that there's a man being held by another man, and it's just interpreted and really symbolic that the turbulent relationship between the artist and his father. So Max Ernst would be the person in the white, and he's being held by his father. And Ernst replaces the classic image of the Virgin Mary holding the crucified body of Jesus with his father as Mary and the artist himself as Jesus. So basically, his dad would be the Virgin Mary, and he would be Jesus, just being held by his dad and just being comforted and being taken care of because his dad meant a lot to him in his life. For this one, The False Mirror by Rene Magritte. The meaning behind this is it's really interesting. It places the viewer on the spot, caught between looking through and being watched by an eye that proves to be empty. So it's almost like looking at a mirror and just looking like being watched, but you're just seeing nothing. You're just seeing emptiness inside of you, and that's just how a lot of us can feel at times.